but they've learned to do it not to be cruel, but just because that's what everybody else is doing. And most people, again, because we're social animals, we tend to do what those around us do, start adapting habits that aren't necessarily healthy. And you know, I grew up eating meat without thinking about it. I think most people grow up eating meat without thinking about it. And once we start thinking about these issues and start making choices that are aligned with our own values, we start seeing a big shift. And I think one of the reasons people are so sometimes defensive when vegetarians or vegans, you know, raise these issues is that they, in their own guts, feel kind of guilty and kind of uneasy about their own behavior and feel like, you know, I'm really not living the way I feel is best. So I think, you know, we want to encourage people ultimately to make choices that are aligned with their own values and aligned with their own interests. And it doesn't make sense to be eating food that gives us heart disease and cancer, but that's what we're doing in this country. It also doesn't make sense to support an agricultural system that's contributing to the worst environmental problems this world has ever faced, which is what we're also doing by supporting animal agriculture. The United Nations put out a report a couple years ago called Livestock's Long Shadow, talking about how the livestock industry is one of the top contributors to the most serious environmental problems we're facing today. So these problems are becoming more and more apparent, and it's because of the work of everybody here and because of the growing awareness about these issues. And each of us, every day, can play a role in creating a different kind of world. And, you know, coming to an event like this is something that I really enjoy doing. You know, oftentimes when I'm out there, and I'm talking a lot these days with factory farming folks, I was actually invited to speak to the National Pork Board in Iowa about a month ago. That was pretty wild. And, you know, I opened up by talking about how, you know, we really appreciate the hard work farmers do. We respect the fact that farmers are feeding the world. But the key question is, what's the most efficient and appropriate way for farmers to feed the world? Is it by growing grain and then harvesting that grain and feeding it to animals and raising the animals and then killing the animals? Or is it by growing plant foods and feeding them directly to people? It's clearly by producing plant foods instead of animal foods. So I'm putting these kinds of messages out there, and the response is interesting. Some people are really dug in and they're not wanting to listen to it, but others are listening. And after my talk, a few people came up to me and said, you know, my cousin's a vegetarian and my sister's a vegan. And so even within this animal farming business, there are people who are vegans, who are expressing these sentiments, and farming people who are in animal agriculture are starting to recognize that us vegans are actually people too. We're not this sort of strange race of whatever, you know? We're actually humans that share a lot of the same concerns that others do. And so, you know, our movement cannot just be sort of a vegan club. We need to expand and be about inclusion. A friend of mine, Will Tuttle, who wrote The World Peace Diet, talks about radical inclusion. Being a vegan is about radical inclusion, including other animals in our sphere of compassion. And I think also it means including other people who are not traditionally vegans or aligned with our vegan worldview, but who are living in a way that is misaligned with humane sentiments and probably something they're not too crazy about. And also, they're eating in a way that is not necessarily very healthy. So we're now at a point where I think there's more awareness, and we have people like Bill Clinton talking about adopting a plant-based lifestyle. Yes. It's pretty darn huge what's happening. There's a movie called Forks Over Knives coming out, and that is features the work of Colin Campbell and Caldwell Esselstyn, two individuals who Bill Clinton actually cites for his reason for going to a plant-based diet. And our concerns are raised to a new level. We have, you know, for this year, Ellen DeGeneres was the national spokesperson for the Adopt a Turkey program. You know, there's amazing stuff happening, and people stepping forward like Adi this year. Amazing how you step forward to help this Adopt a Turkey program reach new levels. And then all the volunteers who are part of this event. And I'll just end with a little Well, I'll first say animal abuse is a people problem. If we're going to stop this cruelty, we need to talk to people about it. And I encourage you all to, hopefully you've taken some pictures here, but if not, take some really quickly and share them with your friends on Facebook and through social networks. Get people thinking about these issues and talking about these issues. One of the big problems is that people don't think enough about these issues and eat in a sort of mindless way and live their lives without thinking about the consequences of their choices. And those consequences are profound when it comes to food, in terms of animals, our own health, and the environment. So animal abuse is a people problem, and each of us can play a role. You know, if you adopt a turkey, put the picture of the turkey up in your workplace, let people know about these things, and get people thinking about these things. It's so important. And the last thing I'll just mention, just as sort of a shout out to the long history of volunteers at Farm Sanctuary, is many of you know who Hilda is, I think? Hilda the sheep, who was rescued from a dead pile in Lancaster Stockyards, our first rescued animal. We found her literally thrown on a pile of dead animals.
Oh my.
And took her off the dead pile, and she lived with us for more than 10 years before she died. And we actually started a Hilda Club society for major donors. But Hilda was named after our first intern, whose name was Hilda. And over the years, we've had hundreds of interns who have come through Farm Sanctuary and have given selflessly to help animals and to help us do our work. And that is the spirit of this movement. Those are the unsung heroes that really make things happen. Along with the volunteers who work on initiatives like Proposition 2 here in California that passed in 2008, there are thousands of volunteers there. So this movement really does bring out the best of humanity. It's got a huge heart and a huge dedication and a huge passion, and it is really an honor to be part of it. So thank you all very much, and let's, I guess, enjoy I don't know what else happens next, but thank you all, and thank you.